What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So this is the start of a video series that I'm working on called Like It Used to Be, where the plan is to feature some of my favorite retro video games and offer some chill commentary on what I enjoy most about them and how it feels good to play them now in 2025. In this video, we're reaching way back to 1990 and taking a look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan for the Nintendo Game Boy. All of the footage used in this video was captured on the ModRetro Chromatic, making use of its DMG Game Boy color palette, which I think does a really nice job of replicating that monochrome green and black look that you would get from the original Game Boy. So over the past few months, I've really been trying to reach back and pick up some retro games that came out from before I was born or while I was really young. For context, I'm in my early 30s and I really didn't start playing video games until around 1996, 1997. So obviously I didn't get a chance to play TMNT Fall of the Foot Clan when it came out on the Game Boy back in 1990. But picking this up now, this game really embodies so much of what I enjoy about Game Boy games. It's that short, tight experience that's just hyper-focused on delivering a fun time. There's something really special about getting your hands on a Game Boy, booting this up, seeing the Ninja Turtles, hearing that soundtrack, and shredding through the Foot Clan bit by bit. You really get into a good flow state with the game, and it's over before it starts to overstay its welcome. Once you kind of have your bearings in the game and you know what you're doing, you can complete this game in about 30 minutes or so. But each stage has a bonus stage that you can locate by exploring the level a little bit, and also that constant grind to get a higher score is honestly enough to keep me coming back again and again, and I think adds to its overall replayability. And I just love that old school feel of games where their replayability just comes from that raw grind for a higher score. So this one's really enjoyable in that aspect. So as far as gameplay is concerned, if you've been looking at the footage, you kind of know what you're getting into. This is a traditional side-scrolling beat 'em up that sees you playing as one of the four Ninja Turtles, trying to help save their reporter friend April, who has again been kidnapped. And this is the, typical damsel in distress storyline, which is very similar to that's employed in the TMNT cartoons and the movies and the numerous other video games that came out in that era. It's a simple premise, but it gives you just enough incentive to follow the Turtles on their adventure, to fight through the Foot Clan and take down Shredder and Krang. And really, that's all you need for this game. There are some cutscenes that are employed in the game. They're usually these static images or short animations that play between each level, but they do a good job of moving the storyline along and giving you something really nice to look at between stages. Each stage is simple. You move left to right to progress through the stage, and as you're moving, these Foot Clan soldiers will do this like kamikaze jump into the screen to attack you. So the gameplay flow becomes this nice mix of positioning yourself to avoid them jumping into the screen and trying to position yourself well to counter with your own attack. Now, your character moves very slowly. It's this very slow, deliberate walking pace. You can't dodge or do a quick dodge or run or sprint or anything. So the game really rewards a bit of patience and positioning as you work your way through all of these stages. To fight back, each of the turtles have a standard attack, a kick that you can do when you jump in the air, and as you crouch, you can throw a ninja star. There's no functional difference between each of the turtles. I mean, cosmetically, they all have their different weapons that they use for their main attack, but they function identically outside of that, which I think is a good thing since the different turtles act as your four lives in the game. So when you lose playing as one turtle, they're captured. You can no longer pick them to play with, and you have to choose a different brother to go out and continue the game. Once you've exhausted all the turtles, then it's game over. However, at the start menu, you can choose to begin the adventure on any of the game's 5 stages, so you always can continue at the stage that you died at. Each stage ends with a boss fight that can, be perfected with a bit of practice. And these bosses are really fun to learn their mechanics and get their attack patterns down and kind of master each of these individual boss fights at the end of the stages. Overall, I think the gameplay is well suited for getting into that good flow state and going through the game. The entire game can be completed in about a half hour once you know what you're doing, but getting to that point will take at least a few playthroughs. The first 2 or 3 levels are pretty straightforward, but levels 4 and 5 are going to offer a good bit of challenge for anyone playing this game. They'll really have you planning out and thinking about your next move. And this is the type of game where I can see it being very fun to memorize the different attack patterns for the bosses, memorize where the enemies are, and trying to do something like a no damage challenge run. This game is really well suited for that type of gameplay and can kind of add some legs to the replayability of this game. For an early Game Boy game, Fall of the Foot Clan does an amazing job creating an atmosphere that is fun and engaging. You'll be fighting Foot Clan in the sewers, fighting in the streets, brawling on the top of trucks, and eventually invading the Technodrome, all of which are pretty faithfully represented here and done so with well-designed sprite work. They have these large sprites for all of the characters and the enemies, and it really stands out among those early Game Boy titles. But honestly, the real star of the show when it comes to creating this amazing atmosphere with this game is the soundtrack. And when I was looking into this game for the video, I saw that the soundtrack was composed by Mashiru Yamane, who was the lead composer for a lot of the Castlevania games, which makes sense because those games always had amazing music. And the music is amazing here, but it's a bit different, right? It's music that's punchy and playful. It really perfectly captures that spirit of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? The Turtles were always these cool action heroes who kind of didn't take themselves too seriously. And that lightheartedness really comes through in the soundtrack for this game. This game has been an absolute blast to play and is certainly worth checking out. If you love classic beat 'em ups, or if you're a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, or just enjoy really good old Game Boy games, this is a great one to add to your collection. One thing that I love doing for Game Boy games in my collection is designing custom game cases using these old plastic cassette tape cases. For this cover, I stuck pretty close to the original box art on the front with the Fall of the Foot Clan logo up at the top. This cover art is just way too iconic to switch it up too much, so I basically went with the cover that's on the original Game Boy box art, put that on there, put the logo up at the top, and didn't really change anything up too much. I went with the green color on the spine for the logo, and on the inside, I actually found some really cool TMNT fan art to put on the inside here. It's a really cool design, and this is one of my favorite cases that I've made so far for any game. Also, me and this cartridge have actually been on quite a bit of a journey. I recently made a YouTube short about this, but just going through the restoration process. When I first got this cartridge, it was actually in pretty bad shape with a lot of corrosion and label damage, and it wouldn't load originally. So I took it, gave it a new shell, cleaned the board, printed it up a new label, and gave it a new lease on life. And this was the first game that I've restored in that way. And so I think it'll always have a special place in my heart for that reason alone. I hope you all enjoyed this discussion on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan. If you did, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, all that typical YouTube stuff. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game in the comments below. Did you actually play it as a kid, or did you find it more recently like me? What games would you like to see me cover in this series? I'd love to hear from you. Until then, keep gaming simple, fresh, and fun, like it used to be. I'll see you in the next one.